Hi everyone, it's Ellen Lutz, Health Sciences Librarian here at UMass Amherst. In this video, I'm going to talk about my tips for doing comprehensive literature searches. And what I mean by that are the types of searches that mostly grad students are going to do for capstone projects, for theses, for dissertations, and any systematic scoping or other kind of types of more formal reviews that you are preparing to hopefully publish. Before I start talking about some of my specific search tips, I want to take a little time to talk about methodology. When you're doing these types of comprehensive literature reviews, one of the main goals in these reviews is that you are doing a review that someone else can reproduce. So for your capstone project, your instructor or your advisor may be looking at this. If you're publishing, it's so that whoever reads your work, your article, if when it gets published, can go back and try to replicate what you did, do the same search that you did in the same databases, apply the same criteria, and get the same results. So you want to, because of that, you want to make sure you're using what we call the subject-specific databases. So things like PubMed, CINAHL, Web of Science, because the search that you do in those should be the same no matter where you're located doing those searches. Our discovery search, the default here on the library's homepage, is very much customized to what we have access to here at UMass Amherst. So even going to another school, even one of the other 4 colleges in the valley here, because we don't all subscribe to exactly the same databases and journals and have access to exactly the same things, you can do the same search and get different results. So those are not reproducible or replicatable. Another tip that I have is to make sure when you're doing searches that you're documenting all of the searches that you do. So keep track of the date, what database you searched, the keywords that you used, or even the search strategy, how you combine those keywords, any limiters in the database that you applied, and the number of results that you got. You can do this kind of however it works for you in a paper journal, in a Word doc, in a Google Sheet, kind of, whatever works for you, but it is much easier to take just a few seconds, not that much time, to record that information as you're doing those searches and have it and then not end up needing it than it is to need those and not have access to them. And the other thing you're going to want to do is, this kind of goes into figuring out the right keywords to use, is to pick 1 or maybe 2 databases to do some preliminary searching in as kind of a warm-up exercise to make sure that you're capturing the keywords that are getting the types of articles and the types of research that you're interested in. Now, this isn't part of the formal process of the documenting that you're going to do for these. It's good to take the notes just so you know. It's like, oh, I tried these keywords and I didn't get very good results, so I tried these keywords and these are some additional keywords that I found from that. So again, this is sort of the preliminary steps of before you settle on your search strategy that you're going to use moving forward with your review, to kind of make sure that you understand, get a good lay of the land for your topic. Your preliminary searches will also help you identify potential inclusion and exclusion criteria. Again, for these types of comprehensive literature reviews, you are not going to just randomly choose articles that seem good or seem a good fit for your topic. You're going to develop a set of criteria that you're going to use to help select those articles. So for example, an inclusion criteria example would be, okay, I'm including any articles published or only articles published since 2020. And an example of an exclusion would be, I'm excluding all studies that were not done in the United States or Canada. So those are just a couple of examples. Depending on your topic, you'll have to figure out which ones are appropriate for your topic. It might be a specific type of methodology that they used, or an age group, or another way of determining a specific population. You can check out my literature review guide, literature reviews, systematic reviews, and more for health sciences for additional tips and tools. And this includes some links to, especially for systematic or scoping reviews, some guides from other libraries about how to go through and do those. And to get to this guide, if you didn't kind of catch the URL up here, from the library's homepage, you can go to Find and Borrow and then Research Guides. And probably the easiest way is to go by owner, or it's also listed in any of my subject areas. If you scroll down to my name, here I am, Ellen Lutz, you'll see lots of guides, but literature reviews, systematic reviews, and more for health sciences is one of them. All right, so now let's actually talk about how to do your search. So as I already mentioned, you're going to want to choose subject-specific databases of where to search. And you want to have really search any of the places that might have relevant results in this comprehensive type of literature review. You're wanting to try to make sure that you initially gather in all of the articles on your topic. So a minimum of 3 to 4 databases is said for most public health and health related topics. PubMed and Web of Science are 2 good ones. Often CINAHL, which is one of the nursing databases, is good. PsycInfo, which is anything that is mental health or behavior related, can be a good topic. This is a time when, if you aren't sure what databases to use, reach out to me and I'm happy to make suggestions. This is another time when that list of research guides can be helpful. So under Find and Borrow Research Guides, you can see the research guides for all the different subject areas. And in those, librarians will suggest some databases that might be good for your topic. So like for kinesiology here, I can go to the kinesiology guide, and I've got under Find Articles, some recommended databases to use if you're looking at a kinesiology related topic. So for a sample search, I'm actually going to use the database CINAHL. And if I go to databases, I know that I want CINAHL, so I can type that in. Again, this databases is just a way to search for the title of a database, not the contents of it. This will just take me to the link to CINAHL, and then I have my advanced search once I'm there. So for an example search, I'm going to say that my question is telehealth an effective way to monitor glucose levels in diabetic patients? So what I like about using CINAHL, a lot of the other EBSCOhost databases kind of show up with three lines, so you can think of each of the concepts of your search, of your research question as on a separate line. And so if I start out with just diabetes and telehealth and glucose. So if I do that search, I get 167 results. Seems like maybe there's more about that. So, I just used a single word for these. So one of the big things when you're doing a comprehensive review is you want to think of kind of all of the alternative terms that you might use for each of your concepts. So for diabetes, I'm going to do, diabetes, or if I click back in here, or diabetic. And then with telehealth, you'll see sometimes it'll make some suggestions. So we have the telenursing, telecare, telepractice, e-health. I think this is the one that I want. It's got e-health and m-health, or digital health. Or technology. I'm going to take out the technology because that seems a little bit too broad for what I'm interested in. And then, of course, like glucose, we have glucose or blood sugar or A1C. And if I run that search instead of 167 results, okay, now I've got 2,000. So now this just being more comprehensive makes me, or using additional search terms makes my search be more comprehensive. And so I'm more likely to get all of the different studies depending on what they call, especially telehealth. There are so many different ways that folks talk about telehealth related topics. So you want to try to, and this is why this initial search can be good, because you can look at the subjects that come up, or look at keywords that the author has used for the different searches or different art in there. And now that I have this number of results, then I can look at using some of the built-in limiters. Again, you just want to make sure that you're keeping track of what of those you use and you have a good kind of scientific or reasonable justification for why you are applying any filters that you are using. One of the filters that you are never going to want to use in any of the databases when you're doing a comprehensive literature review is this full text limiter, because you don't want to only see the results that this one database thinks you have access to. You want to see the full spectrum of results, because while you're a USAMR student, it's very likely that we might have access to articles in other databases because we have over 600 of them, or if not, you can get it through interlibrary loans. So you definitely don't want to limit to what only, as I said, what only one database thinks you have access to. And I just want to reiterate that figuring out the appropriate search terms and the appropriate search strategy is a bit of a trial and error process. And so that's, you're going to do some of this before you get started on your formal review. But then once you settle on your search terms and your inclusion exclusion criteria, then you're not going to want to change those as you go throughout. So just as an example, you're going to want to then document your search. As I mentioned, here is an example of the way I might keep track of it is to have a table with the date, the database I searched, the search string. You want to try to keep that as consistent as possible among your databases. Sometimes there'll be some, like in PubMed, I didn't use medical subject headings, which is sometimes you could do, and that's something we can talk about if we do a one-on-one. I'll give you more information on that. But again, the number of results I had, any date limiters that I put on, and then the number of results. When you get results, you're going to then want to export them, so that since you're looking at multiple databases, you are likely going to have some duplicates amongst the same article is going to show up in all of the databases you search, perhaps, or in multiple of the databases you search. So some tools that can help with that are citation managers like Zotero and or systematic review tools like RAN can help you remove duplicates. You can also use Excel, but that gets a little more a little bit of a challenge because every database exports your columns in a different order, or the data in different order of the columns. So that takes a little bit extra work on your part. And then you can, I've got on the systematic review guide, I have got the instructions on how you can export a large number of results from various databases. Oops, so down here, there we go. So you're going to then go through the results, apply your inclusion and exclusion criteria, and then get your final list of articles. You might be needing to then create a Prisma flowchart, which that's one of the things on the systematic review. Systematic review tools. I've got, there's a Prisma flow diagram generator that can help with that. There are some other tools out there that will help you do that. Again, a couple of helpful tools that we have are, I've listed here, RAN is a free web application, as it says, to help you process those articles. And I have a quick look at my RAN here. You can create a literature review, and then it helps you take care of duplicates, and then you can also include, choose articles and tell whether to include or exclude them, and if you're excluding, give a reason. Another tool that can be helpful is a citation manager. I use Zotero. That's one of the ones we support here. It helps you organize articles for a bunch of different things. One of the things I really like about Zotero is it also will flag any articles that you have in your Zotero library that have been retracted. It connects to Retraction Watch, a database that tracks those things, so that you can, maybe not be citing an article that has been retracted for some reason. So again, there's a whole lot of stuff out there. This is just a video to help get you started. Definitely reach out to me, ask me if you have any questions. Here's my contact information. So as I said, contact me if you have questions, or if you'd like to set up a one-on-one appointment or consultation, either in person or over Zoom, to talk about your individual topic and search.